Look at this. It's the latest poll, and it has Donald Trump way out front in the lead. He's got 30% support. Next is Dr. Ben Carson at 18, Bush and Cruz 8 apiece, Carly Fiorina and Governor Huckabee at 4% support. Joining us on the phone right now, Carly Fiorina. Carly, welcome to the program. It's very good to have you with us, man.
It's great to be with you, Stuart. Thanks for having me.
Are you going to start to attack Donald Trump forcefully?
Well, you know, I think what I'm going to continue to do for some time now is introduce myself to the American people. You know, when I went into the Fox News debate August 6th, less than 40% of Republican primary voters had ever heard my name. We've moved that up to about 50%, but still about half the folks in the country who are going to be voting don't know who I am yet, because I'm not a celebrity. I'm not a professional politician. I haven't been doing this for a couple of years. And so I need to introduce myself.
But a lot more people would know you if you attacked him.
Well, yes and no. Look, I don't shy away from drawing contrasts between myself and other candidates, as you well know. I don't shy away from criticizing anyone that I think is out of line or taking a position that I think is wrong or dangerous for this country. And so I'm not going to shy away from Donald Trump or anyone else. But my goal in this next debate is to make sure that people understand who I am and what I will do.
Would you have Donald Trump as your vice president?
Oh, I think it's way too early to ask or answer that question. I'll tell you why. I would say the same thing if you had asked me any other name.
Okay.
What presidential campaigns do is reveal character over time and under pressure. And I think it's important to see people over time and under pressure, because after all, the job of the President of the United States is a lot tougher than a campaign, and you better understand what someone's character and capability are before you elect them.
Okay. We're in the middle of a market sell-off, in part because of what's going on in China. China has been flexing its military muscle and breaking into our computer systems. Republican presidential candidate Scott Walker says, hey, let's just cancel the state visit of China's premier when he comes here later this month. Would you do that? Would you cancel that state visit?
No, I wouldn't, actually. I wouldn't make it a huge photo op. I would make it a serious negotiation. But having done business in China for many, many years, I think now is the time to put pressure on China in all kinds of ways. They are flexing their military muscle more and more because their economy is weak. It's the classic response. There's no question that China is a rising adversary. There is no question they have cheated on trade agreements. There is no question they have engaged in cyber espionage and cyber attacks for a long time. It's ineptitude, by the way, that the Office of Personnel Management couldn't detect and repel that attack. So the time to put pressure on them is now from a whole series of perspectives. First, we ought to be patrolling by air and by sea the South China trade route, which they want to control. $5 trillion worth of goods and services flows through that trade route every year. We cannot permit them to control it. Number two, when their ships come close to the Bering Strait, our war planes ought to go out and escort them. I mean, we need to be equipping our allies with the technology and the equipment that they've asked us for so they can join us in a more aggressive patrolling of the disputed territories on which China is now building military bases. And in this state visit, we ought to be, I fear President Obama will not, but we ought to be talking very seriously about their failure to protect our intellectual property, which they agreed to do when they joined the WTO and have never done. And we ought to be talking with them as well about perhaps asking them to play by the same rules in our marketplace that they force us to play by in their marketplace. We are their largest market. That gives us huge leverage.
Over the weekend, Donald Trump appeared to be tripped up by some foreign policy questions. He didn't appear to know the difference between the Kurds and the Quds Force out of Iran. I think you answered the same questions. You got them all right. Did Trump sort of blow himself up on foreign policy?
Well, you know, I do think I think, seemed to believe those questions were unfair. They're certainly not unfair. These are serious times. And the President of the United States, as the Commander-in-Chief, needs to understand the world and who's in it and what's going on in the world. And, of course, the Quds Force, which is basically the Iranian Navy SEALs, the Quds Force has been a source of conflict in the Middle East for many, many years, decades. They also have murdered and wounded American soldiers purposefully. The head of the Quds Force is now traveling around and visiting Russia and China, their new allies. These are bad guys. And, of course, the Iranian deal that President Obama and John Kerry just cut, a horrible deal, gives them more money, gives all of Iran's proxies more money. So Iran is far more dangerous, far more powerful, and far more wealthy as a result of this deal, and that means the Quds Force is going to get worse, not better, which is why on day one in the Oval Office, I will make a phone call to the Supreme Leader of Iran to tell him, hey, new deal. Sorry, I don't care that President Obama signed a deal. There's a new deal, and the new deal is we're going to make it virtually impossible for you to move money around the global financial system. We can do that without anyone's cooperation until and unless you open every military and nuclear facility to real anytime, anywhere inspections by our people, not yours.
Carly Fiorina, it's a pleasure to have you on the program. We appreciate your time. Thanks very much, ma'am.
Thanks, Stuart.
Okay.